This time we're going to resume the meeting of October 16th, 2017. Vice Mayor Clara, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody took a knee.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilliel?
Here.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Here.
Mayor Velasquez?
Here.
Councilmember Friend?
Present.
Councilmember Luna?
Present.
City Manager Avera?
Here.
City Attorney Diaz?
Present.
Chief of Police Westrick?
Here.
Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council meeting of October 16th, 2017 was posted on the bulletin board on October 12th, 2017 at 9 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There were two items that were discussed in closed session. Item number one, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection B. There's one potential case relating to the 400 block. No action was taken on that matter. With regards to item number two, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, name of case, Award Homes versus City of Hollister, et al. I do have something to report on this matter, and the City Council instructed the City Attorney to prepare a response with regards to the settlement offer that was made in the Award Homes case and the two BMC Promise Way LLC v. County of San Benito cases, as well as the county's proposed master agreement for tax transfer upon annexation. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tonight we have a proclamation for LULAC Week. Do we have members from LULAC here tonight? Whereas since its formation, San Benito County LULAC has encouraged the membership to uphold and defend the rights of the Latino community in the San Benito County and serves as a circle of community influence and support. And now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim October 22nd through the 29th, 2017 as LULAC Week in the City of Hollister and commend San Benito County Council 2890 of the League of United Latin American Citizens on the 30th anniversary of its local founding and invite all residents to celebrate with LULAC in their accomplishments.
Thank you, council members and audience as well. Our community is small, but it's very strong. And it's strong because there's a lot of unity in our community. And this is what our whole essence is about, is our community. It's us. We are the community, and we have to work together and make it work. And that's what we do. We've been doing this for 30 years, and we're still going. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull?
A4.
A4?
A7.
Any items from the public?
A9?
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item A4.
My question, is this being done by A&W? Is it being done by a group? Is it being done by...
I think it's actually being done by a group, but obviously right in front of A&W on East Street, between East and just north of the cannery.
The owner of A&W will be participating and has signed the agreement.
from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. It seems like a long time to have that street closed, but
My understanding is that they were going to, well, as most car shows, as you're aware of, usually people tend to leave around 3 or 4. I'm guessing that they need time to clean up and get rid of the barricades and whatnot. I haven't seen many car shows go beyond 6, especially this late in October.
okay. But I was just wondering if it was being put on by a club or a group or just the owner of
I'm not sure.
A&W.
I don't recall the group's name.
Not really that important. But
The owner of A&W is the one who filled out the block party permit
Yeah.
and signed it.
okay.
Okay, Councilor Luna, you had a question?
I also have a concern only because there's a bar in between the cannery and A&W. My concern would be possibly liquor was coming out of the bar during the day, and people are, car shows attracts families. So that would be my concern.
I could help you on some. If alcohol were to come out of an establishment, they would lose their license, or they'd be definitely receiving some citations on that. So I don't think it. Not that it can't happen, but I think most bar owners understand the consequences of allowing something like that to happen.
Yeah, well, that would be my concern too, because of the bar. I mean, there's some issues that have happened there in the past, and I'm just concerned that if that would be the possibility, then you know what, they need to be informed that they will lose their license.
I don't believe there's a representative from the other party besides the A&W owner, but I do believe he told me that he has put on this car show in San Jose for the last few years and has recently moved to Hollister, and so would like to try it in Hollister this year.
Okay.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the public? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
against? All right, 5-0. We'll move to item A7.
Yeah, and just for transparency purposes also, I understand that the payroll manager is a person that's already in the department and will.
We have somebody that's doing payroll, but I'm actually going to have it do an internal recruitment to let everybody have a chance to apply for it.
Yes, and on your report it does say if there's going to be a fiscal impact, and it has 0.
Correct. Because, I mean, right now we have some people that are to be promoted, but they haven't been promoted yet, and they were budgeted a little bit higher. And then we did have some overtime budget a little bit, but not very much. But because this position would be exempt, so there won't be overtime or comp time.
Okay, and when we were approving the budget, my question at that time was, since your department is completely filled right now, all positions are filled.
Correct.
The overtime was reduced.
Correct.
Decreased. And so, do
yeah.
you have any? Do you have a figure
we,
on that?
We have all the positions filled, but sometimes there are projects that require them to stay over, especially the utilities. If there was a high utility day, and then there are people working overtime for that.
Okay.
But mostly general fund people, it's very minimal.
And this position would be a confidential
Correct.
employee.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been felt that because we're doing payroll, during negotiations, we have to ask how an item that maybe a group is bargaining for, how it will affect our payroll, and it's just easier to have them confidential.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve A7.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Item A9. We had this from the public, I believe.
Marty Richmond?
Good evening, Marty Richard from Hollister. I have two parts to my comments. The first part is someone asked me to ask a question. I'll take the answers after I sit down. That is what the qualifications are for the Cannabis Affairs Manager. The second part is my own comment, which is I oppose this. I would not oppose hiring someone because I think you need really need some help in development services here as the rate we're going. I think you need help in planning. I don't think we should hire somebody just with the little box around them that says, I'm the cannabis affairs manager. I think that squashes their ability to be used somewhere else. I think it leads to these walls that go between the planning functions. I think it ought to be part of the regular planning services. I think you ought to staff them with enough people to handle whatever additional work this requires. But I do not think we should hire someone with the title of Cannabis Affairs Manager. We have businesses in this city who bring in total maybe $8 million in sales taxes every year, with the regular sales tax, plus we got a 1% transaction tax that goes directly to us, all of it. So that's $4 million there, and there's $4 million, most of which goes to the state, I understand, some of which comes back to us. We don't have anybody. We say, okay, you handle the gas stations, and you handle the printers, and you handle this, and you handle that. So we're not giving anybody else this kind of service. I think we do need the service. I just think that's going down a bad road. That's no way to organize a city that has so many functions that we have, that we need the flexibility to be able to move people around and have them do the work we need at any particular time. If cannabis is going slow, they should be doing something else. They should not be sitting around looking for trouble in the cannabis area. I'm also concerned that if you give them the title of Cannabis Affairs Manager, they naturally would think, and this is just human nature, my job depends on keeping the cannabis operation going. I don't think that's a good way to do business. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions from council? My question would be, would it not be a better idea to hire or contract this out to a service that has a strong background in doing this type of work, rather than trying to start it ourselves at this point anyways? I know there's several firms that are offering these services to cities that have the background on how to structure these cannabis.
I mean, from a personal perspective, I would say this is that the council has kind of charged us with the tasks to make this industry as good as it possibly can be. And I think that if you have an employee that is in-house, their main focus would be to do that. To answer, Marty's question as far as how the position is set up, it's absolutely part of the Development Services Department. But its main function is to coordinate the efforts of not only the Planning Department, but the Building Department, the Fire Department, the Code Enforcement Department, and the police liaisons that we have. So you're talking about regulatory permitting of 90 businesses that do require the council's has directed us to monitor them on a regular basis. So it's not like a gas station. We recognize that we have a staff that receives property or sales tax dollars from a gas station through the county. We don't have to regulate them because there's not necessarily, there's several agencies that regulate gas stations. This industry is solely regulated by the City of Hollister under the City of Hollister's own sort of personal rules. So you need to be aware of exactly what your folks' rules are. And lastly, I think that we are going to, the other part about being in a box, or we're going to try to be working with the mid-management union or organization, bargaining group, I should say, so that if the industry starts to move away from us, we don't have that type of work. Originally, Brett and I talked about actually having this as a contract employee because we wanted to be able to have a way out if there needed to be a way out. But we think we're going to be able to get there the same way with the mid-management bargaining group, in that if the revenues aren't continuing to be generated at the rate we believe they're going to be generated at, that we have a way out or a layoff provision in there for that position specifically. And again, the amount or the importance of having somebody here on a regular basis, as we all know, we spent the last year trying to get at least to this point, and it isn't necessarily easy, and it is a little bit more complicated than we kind of initially had thought it would be. But I think it's important that you have somebody that you can have to point the finger to when something is going not right. You also want to make sure that you have somebody that can keep up on the laws. As you know, Marty, they change every single day on the marijuana stuff, and we're going through another change right now with the adult use, which is a whole nother area that nobody, I don't think, is really used to yet. So we're going to be going down that path as well. So I think that until we get our hands completely around this thing, then we need somebody.
Just to follow up on my question, so do we have that layoff provision in there if something were to change on at this point?
What we will do is we start negotiating with the other bargaining groups here shortly, and with this position and this job description, you will be putting it into that mid-management bargaining group. So this is a new position for that group. We believe that it will not be very difficult to have that layoff provision to be included for that particular individual.
Okay, Vice Mayor Clower, question?
Are we going to have a difficult time finding somebody to actually take the job if we have that provision in the contract? Because job market's tight right now. If I'm going to take a position that may just be gotten rid of in a couple of years, as opposed to something that's already been permanent for decades, is that going to give us a harder time to actually get somebody?
Likely. I mean, and that's the other direction that we can go. Like I said, we can make it a contract employee. You're going to pay more for that because that's going to be, if something, if we go strictly contract where you can terminate them, at any time for cause or no cause, you're going to pay more for that. I think that with it being in the mid-management bargaining group, they're going to have some protections, and I think that when we get to the negotiations, there are going to have to be some qualifications about, how much revenue is being generated before this position is laid off, right? So there'll probably be some criteria about when that could actually happen, instead of just on a whim. So if revenues for the city of Hollister, don't exceed $1 million a year, then we can start the layoff procedures. Or you can go a contract amount and say, we can let you go whenever we feel like it. I think we can set the bar high enough where people should feel relatively comfortable about taking the position, I think. And that would be the goal.
Do we have any spreadsheet or anything on projected revenues and the projected time that's going to be necessary from this position based off the number of permits that we expect?
So, just right now, what you've already approved, just in cultivation, the revenue is about $1.26 million. That doesn't count any manufacturing or gross receipts. On top of that, you'll be adopting a regulatory permit fee. That was one of the conversations that the mayor's had with me, and I was trying to figure out where in the ordinance it was written. It is written that there will be a regulatory fee. We'll be coming back to you to establish that fee. So every year, anybody with a permit has to pay that fee to keep their permit. And again, the other thing that I think is most important is that from a planning perspective, and why we're kind of getting it out of the planning commission world and directly to you, is you have at least 5 projects right now with subdivisions and major greenhouse components. And those greenhouse components, I don't mind sharing with you, one is proposing 4 million square feet. Well, at $7 a square foot times 4 million, that's a significant amount of cultivation fees that the city of Hollister may be looking at, and it's probably 2 years away. The reality is once we get past CEQA, once we do the subdivision, if they end up doing a subdivision and going through the construction process, that's a significant amount of money. And they have started their application process. So that's a real project.
Do we have an equivalent position that's already in development services?
We have, in development services right now, we have essentially the engineering group. So we have a city engineer and an associate engineer, and a planning manager. We have 2 assistant planners, and then the building department. And then Brian.
So would this be about the same level as planning manager?
It's exactly set up to be exactly like the planning manager and the engineering associate engineer.
Okay. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to have like a secondary role for this if after a while it doesn't quite go swimmingly.
Well,
and that way we don't have
yeah.
somebody who's twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah, so the major component of this position is not only keeping up with the regulatory part of the cannabis world, but it's actually a huge planning job. I mean, because they're the ones that are going to be going through the CEQA, the tentative map process with you folks, the site and architectural application process with you. So when you look at the minimum qualifications and the job duties, a lot of it revolves around keeping up with legislation and planning. So,
but we think there's going to be enough work on the reissuing of permits every year once we get past the actual CEQA and build out of what's likely to happen in terms of actual projects.
I honestly believe that, yes, there will be enough work if we're going through the facilities and making sure that things are being monitored correctly, that there will be plenty of work for one person to make sure that they're coordinating the efforts. This individual is coordinating the efforts of 8 other people. So if you're talking about span of control, these are the folks that are going to be going through this individual to make sure that when we go out to all these facilities, again, one facility may have 4 or 5 permits, but you got to make sure that they're all doing exactly what they're saying, and they're under different business names. So that's why it's going to take some time. And again, it may not in a few years, but we don't know until we at least get there.
Okay.
I can tell you right now that it's been a full-time job every day for the last 8 months.
Do we have any idea of the term of the contract that we'd be looking at for somebody to come in?
Most contracts for department heads and things of that nature would be about 3 years.
Okay.
And then the mid-management bargaining group would be we were talking about doing a 1-year deal, but most of them are 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Gilliam.
One of the examples of important essential duties in the job description: serve as a member of the city's management team, provide information and recommendations regarding operations, assist in making decisions related to all facets of municipal government. And then, of course, there's the catch-all in there of any and all other duties. So I think there's plenty of protection in there with the job description that you created, number one. Number two, I think this is more than critical to have a position like this now and to have some ownership within the city instead of contracting out, because this is such a fluid situation, a dynamic situation of obvious public concern. I've never seen the public so engaged in any topic besides marijuana. So I think that it would be a huge mistake for us not to watch this very carefully and select the right employee to monitor all of the daily changes. I'll talk to the city manager, and from one day to the next, there's a huge change in marijuana law, and we need to be cognizant of that, aware of that, and we need to have that funnel point. And when you have span of control of 8, that's pretty high already. So I would recommend that we move forward with this and find somebody very capable. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend.
Just a quick comment, too. It also says it's going to serve as a technical advisor to this planning commission, the city council, the city manager, and other city departments. That alone is a full-time job, just to keep us aware of all the changes that are happening. I mean, I envision that person being in Sacramento half the time, the way this thing is working out, or dealing with Sacramento a lot because of the changes that are coming in the adult cannabis world. So I think we're actually late in providing this person. I think we should have done this 6 months ago when we knew how huge this was going to get. So I think it's time to move on this, and I think it's time to do this.
Councilor Lund, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, just with what Councilmember French just said, I know some of you are receiving all the information, newsletters from Sacramento, and while a lot of requirements are changing, there's also an email that went out as to the Bureau of Cannabis is hiring so many people for so many positions. And I think people are really looking around for positions such as this. We don't want to be so late that everybody gets hired at the state level, and then locally we may have a problem, in actually finding the right person for this position. So I really believe that I think we're on schedule, and we just need to move forward on it.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little bit late, but as again, I think that what I would prefer is to make sure that we have somebody that has some experience in interpreting sort of municipal codes and understanding what it is that the city council wants from a policy perspective, and not necessarily related to the industry itself. So,
okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
Only Marty Richmond.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
But you already spoke, though, right, Marty?
You already spoke.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve F1.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll move forward to public input.
I'm sorry, that was A9, not
A9.
F1. I'm sorry.
What, I'm sorry?
I said F1 and
Oh, no, A9.
A9.
Public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have speaker cards tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Zavon.
My name is Yvonne, and I'm an artist from San Benito County, Hollister, California. And I come today to my community to let you know and let you feel the sadness that blankets my body from how sadness comes to me daily from all the sorrow that I feel when they destroy artwork that's been Hollister. I have not only had my stuff destroyed many times by the city of Hollister, and you know, I think about the things that have happened with the city of Hollister, and I say, you know, I mean, what is wrong? Does the city not know how important art is? Does the city not know how important it is to have art and culture in your community? Is it? All these apartments being built, all these houses being built, all these people coming, and there's not one thing of entertainment that has to do with art and culture in this town. The only art gallery in Hollister is so much into celebrating the new art gallery. Well, what's going on with the old one? It hasn't had nothing on its walls since the July 4th of July rally. Do you know how sad it is for artists to walk by a gallery and see empty walls, knowing that this community is full of really good artists? Because of our status, it makes me so sad. Because there's so many brilliant people that live in Hollister, and so many individuals that I've seen their artwork and it's just so amazing. Yet we lack to show of how we say generosity to let them just be somewhere to do art. The city comes with a bulldozer to take down my clothes when across the street there's like a whole railroad track full of garbage. Do they want to hand out a pamphlet and say, hey, we're going to take all your stuff, but here's a pamphlet to a homeless service or some kind of service? Nuh-uh. They'll smash it to the ground. I live in a strong community. I live in a community that has individuals that are artistic, that are brave. I just want to let my community know that I'm a full-blown artist and I'm here to represent that too. I really ain't got no more else to say, but I'm pretty sure you can feel what I'm saying.
Thank you, sir.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening again, Marty Richmond. A new subject. Someone in the community asked me to take a look at the recreational facilities master plans. So I pulled up the one for the city of Hollister and the county of San Benito. Ours, which is being redone right now, is about 15 years old. And the one for the county is 10 years old. And I didn't have to go through them very long before I found out that they were hopelessly out of date. They had the wrong information in them. They had a lot of stuff that's gone on since that has not been recorded in the lists. So here we are in the case of the city 15 years later, we're catching up. And in the case of the county, 10 years later, we're catching up. But we're never going to get caught up if that's the way we're going to do business. And I understand your staff is busy, and they're obviously too busy to handle this. And I don't mean that as an insult. It just, that's what happens. People make these facility master plans so they can say they have them. Then they go in a desk drawer where they don't do anyone any good. The public never sees them, or they're hard to use. They're not set up for the public to pull them up and use them to find out where they can go recreate. So here's my argument. It takes all the recreation facilities in this county to service the people in Hollister and the people in the county. The people in Hollister use both the stuff in the city and the stuff in the county, and the people in the county use both the stuff in the county and the stuff in the city. So why don't we do the one thing we've been promising, trying to do for years, which is consolidate and get together and give this to some nonprofit group who will keep it up and at least keep a live database somewhere that everyone can link to, the same database that is up to date with where are the facilities, what do they offer, what time are they open, what map location are they at, what kind of park is it, et cetera, et cetera. All these key information items. I also did a coverage map. There was no coverage map in the plan that shows here is the park, here's how many people live within a half a mile of it, which is considered walking distance. And the state has a standard we haven't adopted, which is to have 3 acres per every 1,000 residents. And I understand in the old portions of the city it'll be difficult to do, but at least we should have a map that shows where it is. So we need overlay maps. We need a living, breathing database that everybody can hook to, whether you go on the county website or the city website or wherever you go, that shows you where all the recreational facilities are. So I would ask you to, when you have your intergovernmental meeting, and I'll wrap up, to get with the county and propose that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. City manager report.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to item F1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This item is relates to the proposed new city shopping cart ordinance, and it would establish the rules and regulations regarding that, both with respect to owners of premises that use shopping carts and provide shopping carts to their customers, as well as provide regulations for maintaining those shopping carts within the property of those owners and businesses, and also promote and remove blight from different locations within the city, including city parks, streets, alleys, and other locations. I think that this is an ordinance that I've looked at very carefully, looked at different ordinances that are in place in different cities of similar size as Hollister, and also coordinated the efforts of drafting this ordinance for your review with input from different staff by the city, including the city police department and code enforcement. If I may highlight some of the pertinent provisions of the ordinance. Section 9.30.040 provides the teeth, if you will, to enforce the ordinance. This provides that it will be unlawful for any person to do any of the following, including removing the shopping cart from the business premises, being in possession of a shopping cart that's been removed from the business premises with the intent to temporarily or permanently deprive the owner. Also, tampering with shopping carts, including removing serial numbers from them or any information, again, and then also being in possession of these, using them, possessing them, or leaving them at public parks, sidewalks, alleys, and streets again. We think that this ordinance with these measures, and if you look at the subsection E here, it says, any person who violates the provisions of this article is subject to enforcement procedures permitted by law, including but not limited to prosecution of a misdemeanor or infraction, civil action for injunction, administrative citations, and enforcement procedures, and revocation of a use permit. So I think this is going to go a long ways towards removing the unlawful use, if you will, of shopping carts in locations other than business establishments that use them and provide them for their customers. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Mr. Mayor. Councilor Gilio.
Do you have an example of a cart containment plan that you're going to require the businesses to adopt and maintain?
Not one at this time, although it's definitely cited as one of the requirements that these businesses will have to have. But there are certain basic things. If you look at subsection 9.30.50, it provides the type of things that business owners will have to have with regards to their carts, including identification and warning signs. Then also, the business owners will have to implement measures with regards to preventing the removal of their carts from their property. And that's the next section that provides different things that they can do. But it's up to them to use whatever effective means they provide. What happens, though, is if they drop the ball on that, and if you look at subsection 9.30.70, if a business owner then drops the ball and has a lot of shopping carts that are being removed, then at that point in time, there is sort of enforcement provisions that the city may have with regards to forcing that owner to take more active measures to make sure that their carts are not being removed from the premises.
Did we do any outreach to businesses in the area to see if it's going to be an overly burdensome? I'm worried about small business, maybe that I see in here that you can do physical barriers, you can put up signs, but those electronic disabling devices can be pretty cost prohibitive for a small business. I just want to make sure that all of those things aren't mandatory. There's measures, but it doesn't list what you actually have to do. I guess you can pick some from the list.
That's correct. I think it's a ramp up. So as long as their plan is an effective one, I mean, it's over time you're going to see whether or not their the plan that they use is an effective one by the amount of carts that the city is recovering, or code enforcement is recovering from public streets and parks. And then if they meet that requirement of having more than 5 or more carts within a 7-day period be discovered off the premises, then they're going to have to go in with a much more strict mandatory cart containment plan that's set forth in the statute.
Okay, I'd just like to see some outreach to the local businesses and give them some time to get in compliance. And I 100% support the other end. If somebody's stealing carts from businesses, they should be held accountable, and we need a good deal for the police department to be able to have some teeth and cite these folks. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Clark.
It may have said in the draft, but when will this actually go in effect?
It goes into effect 180 days after it's passed, so it takes 60 days for the ordinance to go through. So some of these measures will actually go into effect at 180 days. So for instance, the initial measures to prevent the removal of carts from businesses' premises, that's section 9.30.60, requires that they have to implement measures within 180 days after the passage of the ordinance.
What about the section 040 that goes into unauthorized removal and possession prohibited? When does that actually begin?
That one begins much sooner, so it would be 60 days.
Okay. Do we have any plan to let the people know who have these carts that they will no longer be able to have these carts? Because I can see that becoming an issue. I don't know what our process would be of noticing people, but if you're pushing a shopping cart miles away from the supermarket, somebody should probably tell them, hey, at some point that's not going to be okay, and that cart's going to be gone.
So, Councilman Clara, what I can do from an administrative perspective is get with our code enforcement division, and as they're out and they come into contact with folks that have shopping carts, I can have them provide them some sort of notice and have them let other people know. We'll try to get the word out as best we can.
Okay. And what do we do with the shopping carts after we pick them up? If they've been scratched off the ID numbers and there's no signage?
They're usually stored at the yard. If you went to our corp yard right now, you would see several shopping carts that are down there. We try to do our very best to call the companies that have them come pick them up if they're there for a long period of time. In fact, I was down there. It looks like some of them have been there for a year. We'll go ahead and start recycling them, but we try to get them back to the appropriate businesses. Okay. I mean, most of the big companies, we know which ones they are. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It's actually, if you look at retrieval notification, it's section 9.40.120 of the proposed ordinance. It sets forth what happens with what the city has to do. Attempt to notify the owner of an abandoned cart if the signage is affixed to the cart, but if it's not. If you look at the last sentence there, the city may immediately dispose of any abandoned cart that lacks an identification sign required by this chapter. So if the cart, any signage, numbering, serial numbers have been destroyed or are not visible, then the city can move pretty quickly with regards to disposing of the cart as being abandoned.
Okay. Councilmember Luna?
Yeah, I was looking at the item 9.40.110 enforcement. So any violation of this ordinance would be under the code enforcement of the city?
Yeah, it's what I would call a tweener. It can be a misdemeanor, which would be a criminal matter that could be enforced by the DA, or the city as a crime, or alternatively, it can be formed as a civil infraction or administrative citation. That would be enforced by code enforcement only.
Okay. But it also says any other department designated by the city manager.
That's correct.
Okay. And I was just wondering if it's possible, once this ordinance is established, to send something out in the water bills to people, because if you go around residential areas, sometimes you see shopping carts in front of people's homes in the yards. So it's not only the people that are pushing the carts sometimes in the city or in the area. Sometimes you do see them in residential. So just to let people know that this would be a violation.
We can do that. Brett said we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. I want to thank you for bringing this forward. It's been a long time making it. It's important, I think. It's important to know that we want to work with the businesses as partners and the residents. It's not the goal here is not to penalize businesses or residents. It's to make sure we don't have abandoned carts throughout the city as junk throughout the city. So thank you for bringing that forward. We have a speaker card.
I think somebody might want to speak in the back there.
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor.
You can go ahead and come up to the podium if you would, please.
I just have a question.
And perhaps state your name.
My name is Preston Darwin. I've been living in this area for all my life.
Do you mind coming to the podium so we can have you on the microphone? Thank you.
Again, my name is Preston Artman. I'm third generation. I've been living in this area all my life. And I do a lot of listening before I make a comment about anything. And I have a question for this gentleman here. Have you been shopping lately?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen our senior citizens?
On occasion.
Okay. The ordinance that you're planning to implement, do you know that the cost analysis behind that? And if you don't know the cost analysis of that, then you know that the big majors are going to pass on that cost onto the consumer, which means our senior citizens and anybody on a fixed income is going to cut into their budget for that month. Have you done a cost analysis of all that and the effect it's going to have on our seniors or people on a fixed income?
Not specifically.
Thank you.
However, what you should realize is that there's already laws in place at the state level, and that this is a primary concern of the legislature. And so the laws that the city is enacting at this time are conducive and complementary to laws that are already in place at the legislature level.
Okay. I understand that, but this city council can run this town any way it wants to. That's a known fact. So again, I'm asking you directly, what's the cost analysis that's going to be effective, that's going to be passed on to our consumers, the senior citizens, and anybody else that's on a fixed income?
And my response to you is the same.
Well, we're not getting anywhere.
Mr. Armour,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that. I think the goal here, though, is if we can get shopping carts back to these stores, they're not going to buy new shopping carts, and it's actually probably more of a savings for that store. So I don't see an increase in cost. We want to make sure, again, this is not to penalize, it's to work together with partners, with the stores and the residents. As it's pointed out here, with permission, a resident can use the cart. There are people that do need to take a cart home. They don't have a vehicle to drive in, and I'm sure the store would give them the permission to do that, and we'll get the cart back so they're not on the lawn or abandoned in some alley somewhere. So it's, again, an opportunity to work together, call the right people to come pick up the cart if they are abandoned. Councilmember Friend.
I was just going to point out, they already are charging people more to replace all the carts that are being stolen from them. So if the carts are not stolen from them, there actually would be a savings there. So I hear what you're saying, but I think they're already charging people for the carts that they're losing. They're losing carts every day.
I understand that, sir, but the gentleman could not answer my question, which my big question was, has he done a cost analysis of what the big, and I'm talking Safeway, Nob Hill, I'm talking Lucky's. Now, if you
Mr. Arment, if you would come down to speak, just because for the citizens out that are watching on TV, they can't hear it without the microphone.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I go back to my question originally. We got in probably 4 major grocery stores. Now, they might be able to absorb this, but our grocery outlet, who is not that big, and I do my own shopping, been doing it for a long time, and I've seen a lot of seniors, and I've seen a lot of people on fixed incomes, and I just kind of wonder why they're going through the stores and they're only buying 1 can, or and I've seen our seniors and people on disability going, okay, do I buy this vegetable, or do I buy my milk, or what am I doing? This gentleman here has, he can't answer me and give me a definite answer as to the cost analysis of what the big shopping centers, what it's going to cost them, not counting what it's going to cost our newest little one like Grocery Outlet. Who knows, what they're going to do, and that was supposed to be our big break in this town of getting food cheaper. The gentleman still, Mr. Mayor, cannot give me a cost analysis of what that's going to entail for the big boy or the little guy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Just technicalities here, because this is an ordinance. I would request that the City Council conduct a public hearing.
It's not listed as a public hearing on this.
The staff recommendation is that there be a public hearing. You're required to do that with regards to the ordinance.
Okay, so we need me to open it for a public hearing at this point.
Correct.
This time we will open it for a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this? At this time, we're going to close it for public hearing. Okay, we'll go back to the motion. There was a motion?
Then just another technicality with regards to the ordinance. I apologize. At this time, I would request that the city clerk read aloud the proposed ordinance by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hollister adding Chapter 9.30 regulating shopping carts.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think we're done.
There's a motion and a
That's
second.
my motion to approve.
Motion. There was a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Can we please make sure next time it's listed correctly? Let's move to item F2.
Christine? Well, I'm here to finally present the fourth quarter of the year end for 16-17. Sorry for the delay, but I think we'll be happy with the presentation or the numbers that have come in. Oops. So for the revenues, our revenues have come in 116% above what we projected. Majority of that is in the tax area with our sales tax coming in above projections, plus our motor vehicle in lieu of property tax, and then our Measure E has also come in more than projected. Ooh, go ahead.
Is 420 the license and permits including the cannabis industry?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one of the major increases there, along with the buildings.
That's what I thought.
So, like I say, our revenue is about almost $3.5 million over our budget, 3.8 over our original budget. Measure E transfer accounts for about $1 million of that. It came in $1 million over projected. Our one-time funding sources that we always bring to you at the beginning of the budget. The engineering inspection charges came in $34,000 over projection. Building permits, which was a significant amount of that license and permit, was $600 above, and then the medical cannabis was $350,000, which was, we didn't project that at the beginning of the fiscal year. So expenditures, this is one area that we're going to try to clean up a little bit more throughout the year. Because every department pretty much went over budget except for a few. They're minimal. I think part of it was when we were going through the budget at year end, we noticed that there was some savings, and we kind of asked some departments, if you're going to need it, let's go ahead and get them done early. And I think that kind of rolled over where we might have some payables that didn't come in yet that came through. So I'll explain some of those discrepancies a little bit in just a few minutes. But the one-time monies that we use with the expenditures, we did pay down $1.3 million of the side fund payments. The report you have, it says we had about $1 million. Got an email the other day after I wrote the report. We only have $930,000 of our side fund left in the miscellaneous, so we're almost there. Community grants is to your HDA and the chamber. You made $25,000 to the homeless shelter. We have begun the purchases of the fire apparatuses. It takes about a year to build them, and then some various other equipment. But one-time expenditures are 3.4. Our ending fund balance is over what we projected, about $2.5 million. So our reserves right now are 25.5% of our 17-18 budget. If we backed out the one-time monies that we have in it, we're at reserves actually 28%. One area that our council have always wanted us to look at, engineering, to make sure their monies are being spread. They're at 84% for their salaries. The one area that also needs to be watched is fire for their overtime. They are significantly over, and same as their personnel costs. Usually their personnel cost was less than 100%. Now it is over. So we are requesting some final budget adjustments, $40,000 for non-department for repairs, property tax admin fee from the county, and the senior discount was more than we thought for water and sewer. Council, we had the legal services for cannabis and some other items. Election costs for city clerk, fire personnel, we just discussed. Planning, that's for some contracted service, solid waste, police, and code enforcement was for personnel. Vehicle maintenance, sorry, the planning is the inspection fee with for the building permits that are coming in. Street maintenance, professional services related to the streets, and recreation. We had some people exercise their MOU for leave payouts.
Vehicle maintenance, $53,000 over
Yeah,
and above the budgeted.
Correct, and most of that was our fire vehicles are very old, and that's majority of it. And that's why we were getting the new vehicles. They're just not here yet. We're also requesting some grant and fund cleanups on these other funds also. I won't read them off. And then the additional requests as part of the budget, we're kind of saying, okay, at the year end, what do we had left over? We have 1.25 above our reserves. So we were recommending that you finally pay off the side fund, which the general funds portion would be about $465,000. The rest coming from the enterprise, and then we will let council spend another $800,000, or however you want to spend that $1.2 million.
How many years ahead of time is that payoff?
That pays about 18 years at a time.
How many dollars?
That sounds unbelievable.
Correct. And I know Carson will be ecstatic that we won't talk about side funds anymore.
That's just amazing that we can get to the point where we can write a check and be done with this. That's amazing.
We're going to have a party for that one, absolutely.
Well,
$10 million off the books.
I would like to deliver that one personally.
So with that, I will entertain questions, and we should be coming with your first quarter in the next month or so.
I appreciate that we finally got to the point of ending this side fund issue. By sticking to our commitment, we were able to do that, as we pointed out before, saving close to $750,000 a year in interest alone for several years. I'm proud of what we accomplished here and how we're getting there. I think it's important, though, we have spent several dollars last year. I think at this point what we should do is hold this in reserves, the additional $785, until we have time to look at our goals for the next year, see what we can accomplish with it. There's obviously a lot of issues still out there that we need to address. Any comments, Councilor Luna?
Yeah, I wanted to address the Betts Building Inspection Services contract, $517,500.
You got an early version.
Yeah, you got that was a typo.
That's a typo?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was
That's
a planning
typo.
department for inspection fees.
And what is the amount?
517 for, that's as we bring in additional building fees above what we projected, we also have to pay that out to the inspection to Four Leaf that does the work for us.
Yeah, just a reminder that a few months back I requested a expenditure sheet or something regarding the Veterans Memorial Building. I don't think we've ever received that. An expense.
Did you want that for last fiscal year, Councilperson Luna, or this year?
It's this year.
Okay, so this year, I can tell you that we've only made our quarterly report, quarterly draws to the Vets Hall. There hasn't been anything over and above.
Okay, then it was last year.
Okay.
So.
Did you set me up for that? Gee.
I want to see it. Okay.
Councilor Friend?
I'm confused about the Measure E transfers. Came in $960,000 above projected. I thought that was a set fee.
No, it's a 1% of transactions within, well, actually, that are brought into the city. So if you bought a vehicle in San Jose, you're actually paying that 1%, and it comes into the cities.
Okay.
In other words, our citizens
So
are
if the
shopping more
economy's better, we get
town.
more money
Correct,
coming
correct.
in. Okay.
Fuel cost,
Well,
prices
then
go up,
my-
we get
my-
more.
My question then to the mayor is, and I understand you hesitant in paying off that side fund, which surprises me, but
No,
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 I
no, no, no. I made it clear we're paying off the side fund.
He's saying go ahead and pay off the side fund and then put the $785,000 in reserve.
There's additional $785,000
okay.
plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I want that side
I was
fund.
about to
I
start
wanted that
yelling
gone
and
that first year I
screaming,
was here.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard him too many years. I know what
Well,
he
you know,
meant.
I just, when he made that statement, it caught me and I thought, whoa, that's a change, but.
Vice Mayor Clower.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one is I do think that the council's done a decent job at making some prudent decisions and getting that paid off, but I think a big part of that is owed to the citizens too for approving last year's sales tax extension, because we can only work with the dollars we have, and without those dollars, we'd still be in a rough way. So that's a big thing, and I think that everybody here appreciates that, and I know the staff appreciates that as well. Another thing, some of our community grants, quotation marks, those aren't one-time allocations anymore. Some of those have multi-year agreements. So do we want to separate that out?
Yeah, I mean, how it was presented during 16, 17, that was a one-time expenditure, so we will change it.
Okay, because we have, what, maybe 4 years left with the HDA and
the board,
a couple with chamber maybe?
the chamber board.
Okay, so that would probably be a little bit more clear if we ended up doing it that way going forward. And then I think the question that is probably on everybody's mind, and I don't know what we're necessarily going to get any answers because we haven't really for the 3 years I've been on, is what's up with fire? I mean, last year I pretty much said, tell me the number and I'll agree to it. And we missed by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if somebody gave me essentially a blank check, I would make sure that I was going to have enough money for whatever I needed. I don't understand why we can't figure that out. It doesn't even have to be, we used to say we wanted a certain number just because we liked that number. Well, then we said, fire department, tell us what the number should be. And then we missed it again. So I don't think anybody's here that's actually going to be able to answer this. I don't know if that person was here that they'd be able to actually answer it anyways. But I'm going to keep saying it until I'm done with this job. And hopefully whoever takes this position after me will ask the same things.
Okay. When the city manager will answer that, I will say we have just implemented with our electronic time card codes to try to figure out what's making up that overtime. We've only done a couple payrolls, so we really don't have enough data just yet, but we'll hopefully be bringing that to you soon.
Okay, Councilmember Friend.
Just to maybe help answer Carson's question, is at the fire committee, the chief would be able to tell you, he has the program now that tells him exactly what he's spending that money on and the reason why. So he showed us that he's had this year, I think 6 or 7 occasions where he had to take people and send them out of the city as part of the mutual agreement, and mutual aid agreements. Those spring up to where he can't. If we held him to the number, he would just tell the mutual aid people, I don't have anybody.
Well,
And that's kind of where he's at, and I don't know how we can put a number on that.
but I'm sure that the mutual aid agreement or rule or law or whatever has been in place for essentially ever. So that could also be figured out beforehand. We could have a number that said, based off of the last 5 decades, we've had this many number of calls and this
people.
people.
The next budget's going to be considerably higher.
This budget was considerably higher and we missed it.
I've said, and thank you for both of your comments, many of times, we have a problem there, and we need to solve this problem. I've been repeating this for several years, and it's not acceptable, and I agree with Vice Mayor Clower on this. We've accepted something we should not be accepting. and we need to put a stop to it.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, as Brett just mentioned real quickly, we do have the opportunity now on our system to have all the overtime coded and what actions were being taken, whether it was sick, whether it was a vacation, whether it was strike teams. We have all that information now. Again, it's not very long, or we don't have much history. But what I can offer is I will let the chief know that at your next meeting I will have him prepare a report so that he can provide the whole council sort of what he's prepared for the fire committee meetings in the past, so that you'll have the opportunity to talk to him. I think he's actually going to be in town on November 6th, so we'll see if we can't make that happen. And then we'll also provide you with that detailed report under ESS so that you can see how it works.
Thank you. Councilmember Giglio?
It sounds like the ESS system has only been active since start of the fiscal year. Is that right? We got, what, 2-3 months?
They've been doing it for about a month and a half.
Okay. I would imagine, I haven't seen a fire department overtime slip, but I would imagine you have to write your name, the amount of time that you worked, the reason why you worked that overtime, and then a supervisor needs to sign off on that. Can we go back for the previous fiscal year and hand count those, and let's see what happened? I mean, it's not that much work to do.
We could do that, but the issue would be they did not use those codes in the past.
That's okay. We could use plain language, sick time, strike team. We didn't have a lot of strike team deployments last year. That was my understanding after we spoke today, right? We didn't have a lot of strike team deployments for last fiscal year?
I don't think we had a lot last year, no.
Okay. Yeah, we need to get a handle on this, and if it's legitimate overtime, then we need to determine what is the tipping point for hiring new employees versus paying overtime, and where are we at? Because we can't just keep doubling the overtime every year. We need to know what's happening. It could likely be legitimate and needed, and possibly there needs to be more staff. Possibly the county contract needs to be looked at to make sure we're being compensated there. There's a lot of things we need to look at, but I don't think we can keep turning a blind eye to it. We need to find out what's exactly happening.
Councilman or Vice Mayor Clark?
It's a lot easier to accept it when there's several $1 million extra at the end of the fiscal year that we weren't necessarily expecting. At some point, that's not going to happen, and the budget that we put forward for the next fiscal year is going to have to be what we actually do. It's only a matter of time. I don't know if it's going to be next year. I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, but at some point there's going to be not enough money for what we actually spent, no matter what our budget was. And this is going to be a problem. It's already a problem, and I agree with Councilmember Giglio. It's probably all perfectly warranted, but from a budgeting perspective, we need the number. We need to have some sort of idea. Even if you do it 150% of what we think it's going to be, then we'd probably be right, and we would have enough money for it when we actually have to stick to our budget.
Okay. Do you have any speaker cards?
I have one more.
Marty Richmond?
Councilmember Giglio has another comment.
Just one more quick question. Do we have any salary savings to offset this overtime? Is there vacant positions in the fire department?
No. They're fully staffed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Speaker cards?
Marty Richard from Hollister. I'm glad you're getting around to the side funds. That's been my bugaboo since the first year we had them, because people don't realize that was borrowed money. We just borrowed money. We gave everybody a big raise and said, here, we'll pay you with borrowed money at 7% interest.
7.5.
Or 7.5. Thank you very much. That makes me feel better. I'm tired of fire department discussion because, I come up here and I know I have a loud voice, but I really try to be social. But I don't understand why you guys, as a city council, cannot get the staff to do baseline budgeting. Forget about answering the fires. We don't even know if we have enough people to do the training. And you don't need any overtime slips to do that. So I waited years for somebody to code in the overtime, and now we've got to code it in, we still don't have an answer. Baseline budgeting is looking at how many hours you have to train the people, how many hours they have to be there, and all the information that's already set in the system. we agreed to, we agreed by MOU to a certain layout of how many hours people would work and how that works. And you know what? You may have shot yourself in the head when you did that, because you may have figured it out with no provisions to replace people who go on vacation. People get sick. And if you have no provisions to do that, and you don't have enough people to do that, anybody you bring in all of a sudden is on overtime. I mean, it's obvious to me. So if you would do first do a baseline analysis of how many hours do the people actually work? How many hours do we expect them in their 58-hour shift? How many hours do we expect them to be awake and training? Not all 58 hours, I can assure you that, a week, because if they did that, they would never have time to do anything else. So we have to corner the fire chief and say, how many hours do you think they are going to be training a week? And how many hours do you need to train new people? And how many hours do you need to replace people who go on vacation? And how many hours do you need on people who go sick? I know this is the basics, and I hope you're not intellectually insulted, but I am insulted that we're doing this for the 5th or 6th year and we can't seem to get an answer. Okay? I mean, this is basic management. That's all. You don't even need to know. I'm not accusing anyone of padding the overtime slip. I'm not accusing anyone of hanging around the fire station just to get a bigger paycheck. However, there's obviously something wrong. And what may be wrong is that we haven't figured out the right amount of people we need based on the training and based on the agreement we made in the MOU. And maybe the next time the MOU comes around, we shouldn't be on this crazy schedule we've got for people. It's good for the workers, I'll give you that. The question is it good for the taxpayer? Is the taxpayer getting a fair return? Maybe they're getting a great return. But it's a crazy schedule. It's used by very few fire departments. In fact, most fire departments use a schedule where you work a lot more. Cal Fire has their famous 72 on, 48 off schedule. Okay? And we've got this crazy rotating 7-day or whatever it is schedule where we got people working 58 hours a week and drawing overtime every week just for being on their job, even though they're sleeping. Well, it's fair. They get paid because they're there. But that may be the problem. So I hope you will demand that the staff sit down and do a zero budget line analysis of how many people you need to run the fire department. Forget about the fact that they have to go out and sometimes they have to stay out for hours. That's obvious. We don't know what those hours are because we don't plan the fires. We just look at last year and say this is how many years they used. So I thank you for your time. I'm sorry to get all carried away, but I've had enough of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Councilman Gillian.
Yeah, one important thing to mention here is, sorry, let me turn on my mic here. One important thing to think about too is employee burnout. And a firefighter, a police officer, it's a super high liability position for injuring the public. We're driving tens of thousands of pound equipment around. We're going code 3 through lights. We're doing all these things. So if firefighters are working this amount of overtime, that could be problems for burnout time, not enough rest. We need to examine all of that, and potentially the staffing is not sufficient to cover what we need. I don't know the answer to that because we don't have any data, but we need to look at the data and ensure that our employees aren't burning themselves out. Could be very, very dangerous. I've seen it happen in the past, and believe me, it's not something you want to see happen.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Is there? Go ahead.
I was going to ask that you adopt the resolution, but if you want us to pay off the side funds, then I would also ask that you add to budget the $465,000 in the general fund and the $465 in the enterprise fund.
That was not in the.
Correct. Or just in your motion,
okay.
You would add those.
And add what?
Add the paying off of the side funds as part of your motion.
As presented.
But that would be a pleasure.
That's
to put
easier
that in
way.
there.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion and with capital letters put in pay off the side funds.
The additional 465 from the general fund and the.
As Billy said, as presented.
As presented. Okay. There's a
That's
motion.
a lot easier.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just to interrupt after that presentation of that item, Councilman Clower, I think, hit the nail on the head, and I also want to thank the council and this community for putting us in the spot that we are. I don't think, again, we got a little off track with the fire department, but again, overall, where this city is health-wise in 2017 is a whole lot different than where we were in 2013. And in 4 years, you have done an amazing job, and this community has done an amazing job to put us in a fiscally sound position. I think everybody should be proud. And I personally want to say thank you to you and to the community, because it makes this job a little bit easier when you have resources. So,
Well, I think the resources were there before. It's the focus that changed the debt. So thank you again for putting that focus on and giving us a goal to accomplish. We'll move to item G1, report from council members. Councilmember Luna.
I was unable to attend the AMBAG meeting last week because I was on travel. Other than that, I don't have any report.
Okay. Councilmember Frank.
I had two committee meetings. One was the fire committee, which we were not able to get an update on the JPA because the contractor has not provided it yet. And we couldn't get an update on the fourth fire station because the county is still in the process of deciding how they want to make it 3 bays, 2 bays, 1 bay. Once they make that decision and the engineering is done, we'll get an update on when that's going to be built. The chief gave us the report that I pointed out last time with all the and I will give the fire department kudos. The report that they have given us now that individually lists all the vehicles that they have and what their status is and what the repairs needed to be done on it has gone from a red, basically mostly red, which meant out of service, to now rarely do you see a piece of equipment out of service. It's usually the 2 old vehicles that are just so old they can't fix them, and they're going to be out of service until they're replaced. A very good report, and I know for a fact that the chief's going to be able to come up here and show you exactly where that overtime came from, because he's already mentioned that. The other meeting was the intergovernmental committee, and we just barely had a quorum for the intergovernmental because some people were out of town or whatever, and we could not get an update on the school presentation, and we couldn't get an update on. There was another presentation that were put off. We did get an update that's already been in the newspaper on the community water park, and the part of that project that was 2 parts. One was the school's part, which was the competition pool and the diving pool, and then adjacent to that was going to be a water park. And somehow they found another leg of a earthquake fault that goes right through the middle of the water park, and basically that shut down that part of the aquatic park. So the school is still able to build their pool and their diving pool because they have the 50-foot cushion from it's actually a 100-foot cushion from the fault line, but the aquatic park is done. I can't do it there. What the committee told the person from the water park group was, don't scrap it. Let's look for another place to do it. And I've already had several people suggest some very good candidates that we might want to look at city-owned property that could have this water park done. So it's just going to be a matter of shifting it, finding financing and stuff. That it's not going to be in conjunction with the high school now. It's going to have to be a standalone project. So it's going to be difficult, but we'll have to work it out. And that's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Clower.
Yes, I also attended the intergovernmental meeting, and the other item that we didn't get an update on was the county's inventory of equipment for roads.
Yeah.
So hopefully at the next meeting they will have that, and we'll be able to actually start some dialogue about what can be done together, what projects will become doable based off of the total amount of the equipment and the staffing that's available. Next intergovernmental meeting, I believe we're going to get an update on the wayfinding sign program and when we'll actually be able to find our way with those signs. But that's about it.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the fire committee meeting in here for you, and thank you for having me do that. It was eye-opening. Councilmember Friend already covered everything that was mentioned there. The one important meeting we have coming up is COG this Thursday at 1:30. That's the Council of Governments. We have an a special meeting starting at 1:30, and that's to discuss the feasibility of a potential sales tax measure for traffic improvements within our region. And I think it's super important for the community to be there. And obviously there will be community outreach sessions beyond this one at 1:30. A lot of people can't be there Thursday at 1:30, so look forward to those in the future. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any updates from committees. I've been working out of town for the past month, 7 days a week. So I've been working a little hard to, unfortunately, I could not attend any of the meetings this month. So thank you for taking my place at that meeting. We'll go to informational reports from council. Councilmember Luna.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I attended a meeting with the REACH board here at City Hall. They came here with the city manager and planning. It's very interesting as to, the plans that they have as a group for the future of the parks here in the city of Hollister. Also, I just kind of want to remind everybody of the dedication of the Chispa apartments. It's going to be on Friday at 10 a.m. on Buena Vista Road, and I think that is a plus for our city. Also, just to remind everybody the importance of the Council Youth Committee. I know I received a couple of calls from some students, and I think we need more students involved, as I spoke with the city manager. So let's encourage that. And last, Mr. Mayor, I want to adjourn this meeting in memory of Peggy Corrales, former mayor and city council member. Her memorial service will be at Black Cooper Sanders, the funeral home, on Friday, the 27th at 1 p.m. And as many of you knew, Peggy, she was a very dedicated community member, always. When she was mayor, I believe it was the year 2001, she served in city council from 1998 to 2002. She was very dedicated, and her constituents loved her because she even went to their homes. She had coffee with them. She spoke to them about the issues, and I remember many times she came to City Hall just to visit the employees. So, in her memory, I'd like to adjourn.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend.
I just have the meetings of the fire committee. I will not be able to attend the meeting in November. So
Gilio's back on.
Councilman Gilio can go in my spot. I would appreciate it.
What's the date on that? Is it a set date?
Would be the first Thursday would be the 2nd of November, and that I will not be at the next council meeting also on the 6th. So I'll be out of town.
Okay, Vice Mayor Clower.
Yeah, it seems like there's some interest in the Leatherback property again. I know we haven't talked about it for several years, but now that we've kind of got a little bit of a respite in terms of the successor agency's work on the 400 block, I think maybe we can revisit the Leatherback property and see who out there might have a proposal. I know there's probably at least a couple people or a couple entities now that are looking at it a little bit more favorably. So that would be really interesting to get that started again and hopefully begin that process.
Are you looking to put out RFPs on the property?
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue. I just wonder.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. I think we need to talk about it and revisit maybe what we'd like to see, and then put it out for RFP and see who's out there and what they have plans for. Halloween's also coming up, and all the trick or treating and parties and stuff. So everybody, please drive slowly, drive carefully. keep an eye out. Some people like to put on scary outfits, and they're a little harder to see when they've got the dark costumes on. So just be careful. And then the last thing is on November 8th at 6:30 here in the council chambers, I'm going to have a meeting for District 3 in terms of goal setting for the calendar year 2018. So if you're from District 3 or if you're from just the city in general or even the county, just come down and we'll talk about some actionable goals and hopefully put together a legislative agenda over the next 2 months and see what we can accomplish, and at least from my perspective, and hopefully from my constituents. And then also once I have that meeting, I'll meet with some of the department heads and see what they'd like to get done, and hopefully wrap everything up in December.
Okay, Councilor Gilliam.
A couple things. I wanted to check in on the status of the ethics policy that you guys were going to bring to us. Is that still in process, or we expect to see that anytime soon?
Sort of what I was Council Member Luna and I spoke a little bit about this earlier today. If there are no real substantive changes on the documents that I passed out at the last meeting, we can certainly put that on the agenda for the 6th or the 18th, whatever is convenient for the entire group. If you do have comments, if you can get with me before that, and I can try to incorporate that prior to that date. So we can do that immediately.
You're not going to be here, right?
I would like to request that be on the 20th. November 20th.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I said 18th. My apologies. November 20th.
Just because I would like to have input.
Okay. You can have input now.
And then
I will have.
Is there a way that we can ensure that we have an alternate for all the different committees? Because I know I'm very busy, and there's times when I'm going to have to miss committee meetings. I'm coming into my slower season now, so I'll be able to help out a little bit more. I'd like to just get a list, and if there aren't alternates for different committees, I'd like to see if we can possibly sign those, Mr. Mayor, if you're okay with that, so we can have backups.
On all the cities.
I have a list of committees, but not all of them have alternates.
I don't think they all have
noticed.
alternates, yeah.
I looked at them
Look
last
again.
week. So if
You
you'd like, I
should have
can shoot an email to all
Okay.
of you, and then we could place that on an agenda where the mayor can
Maybe we
actually
assign
officially
alternates.
state.
I'd like to see that, yeah. So we don't miss some of these super important ones that are happening right now. And that's it. Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to bring back up is the street cleaning conversation we're having about parking during street
that.
clean days. I don't have any other items.
That'd be nice.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just real quick from me, some of the staff and I got back from NBAA last week. It's the National Business Aviation Association. It's a huge show. I think we have a real nice setup now. We made some contacts, and like we always say, if we get one or two out of this, it was well worth it. I'm going to be gone next Monday and Tuesday at Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday at the International City Managers Association. I'll report back on what happened or what I learned at that particular conference. Open house at the West Hills Treatment Facility is going to be available to invited guests at 9 o'clock on November 4th. And then it will be open to the public at 10 o'clock for a tour of the facility. So anybody who'd like to go see that facility is more than welcome to hit up there. And my final thing, on Saturday, November 18th, there's been a request that I do another Saturday morning sort of get-together here for people that want to come and talk about anything. I will be here from about, I think we did it from 8 to 12, so I will do that again on November 18th. And that concludes my report.
Okay. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
All right. Chief.
Just a suggestion to maybe remember the fire victims up north in your closing.
City Clerk.
Just because Mickey brought up the youth committee, I wanted to let you know that we have currently 3 applications. I don't know exactly how many we need. We need 4. So who's ever encouraging, great job, because they're coming in. If I could get one more, then I think we would be ready to appoint either at the November 6th or November 20th.
Okay, I've had a couple of people talk to me, and I wasn't aware that we were taking applications.
We are, well, we had advertised, the deadline was August 31st, but we received none. So what we did is we took some applications out to the fair and tried to encourage kids out there to apply because we got absolutely no response, so.
Can you make us a flyer so we can get it out?
Sure.
A JPEG flyer, and we'll get
With an
those out, all of
application
us.
like on the back or something?
Just a, notice so people know it's available and who to contact.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll move to item G3. District 2 appointment for the Parks and Recreation Commission. City Clerk, to your item.
Yours?
Item G3.
Richard Press.
There was still one commissioner needed on the Parks and Recreation for District 2 due to that person not really resigning, but unable to attend meetings for a long, extended period of time. So we now have someone that can replace that person, and I was wondering if we could appoint that person so that Parks and Rec could continue to have a quorum.
Okay. Is there any
Mr.
questions or
Mayor,
conversation?
yes, I think Richard Bettis is here. I believe he's here. But anyway, he's the one that applied, and he did contact me, and I asked him to forward the application to you.
And I received
so
it.
you have received it.
It was in Dropbox.
And I would certainly like to go ahead with his
Questions or
appointment.
Comments from the council?
Make a motion that we appoint.
Do it. Let me ask you if there's any speakers.
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor?
All right, you want to make your motion?
Sure. Make a motion that we appoint Richard
Second.
Press to District 2.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to item G4.
This might be
City Manager?
Can we take a 5-minute
Oh,
before-
can I have a request to take a 5-minute break. And we'll come back. Didn't realize how late it was already. All right, we'll take a 5-minute.
right before the end.
Well,
to item F or G4. As soon as we all get settled. Please proceed.
Please,
All
Mr.
right.
Avera.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, Christina Chavez Wyatt, on behalf of herself and the EDC, are going to present the newest SEDS document. And SEDS is basically the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Plan. The community, San Benito County, in the past has always had one of these and adopted and updated on a regular basis. We've been in probably, like a 5 or 6 or longer 9-year lull. This document is essential when dealing mostly with the federal government. Their Economic Development Administration, they always require the county to have an adopted SEDS. We're not actually asking you to adopt, but we want the opportunity to provide you with the information that's in it, let you know that it exists. And the county, did they adopt it last
Not yet.
week?
We're looking probably as late as February, but hopefully by the end of November.
Okay, so if you have any comments, please let us know, and we can get those incorporated.
Thank you, City Manager Avera. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Christina Chavez Wyatt. I'm with Farmhouse Communications, and I am a contract consultant to the Economic Development Corporation of San Benito County. And I have the pleasure this evening to present to you an overview of the draft Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy 2017 to 2022 for San Benito County, although by the time we're done, it might be 2018 to 2023. We'll do what we need to do to make sure that we're thorough and get it done correctly. For those following at home, you are able to access all these documents at www.businessinsanbenito.com. We also do have some hard copy of the 50-page economic development strategy in the lobby for review, as well as copies of the PowerPoint into the lobby for anyone who's interested. Just very quickly, for those of you who don't know, the Economic Development Corporation of San Benito County promotes economic growth and development in San Benito County, California, through business attraction, retention, expansion, and creation, while maintaining and preserving our agricultural land and rural environment. They are an active organization, although they've been working without an employee or an executive director since 2011. They still are active. They do meet monthly on the first Tuesdays of every month here at City Hall. And I'd like to thank Christine Black and Mary Paxton, Brian, Bill for their support of keeping the committee moving forward. The list of the board of directors is listed currently. They do have a new board member who's taken over as secretary, Andrew Shelton from Shelton Insurance. He took over when Brenda Weatherly retired from the Hollister Downtown Association. I would like to thank Brenda personally for all of her support and work through all of these programs as well. A little bit about the timeline of the SEDS creation process. It was actually launched in November of 2015 when the Economic Development Corporation of San Benito County approached San Benito County for a small budget allocation to launch into a strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats analysis leading up to the development of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is one of the first steps of implementing the economic development element of the San Benito County General Plan. We did work with the California Office of Local Economic Development, CalEd, to do a local economic assessment program, which was presented to the public in June 8th and 9th of 2016, which involved several dozen community interviews and a full set of findings and recommendations and a 30-page report. What was involved with the LEAP was bringing in 5 economic development directors from throughout the state of California. They conducted the interviews and presented the findings and recommendations, which provided the foundation for our SEDS document. We also did a countywide SWOT analysis through interviews, a public meeting, presentations and discussions throughout the county, and a countywide business survey that was included with the County Workforce Development Board through their Rapid Response and Layoff Aversion Program in 2016. Also, on January 25th, 2017, the EDC hosted, again with CalEd, a economic development for local officials training, and the slides for those are also included on the website and in the packets that were provided to staff. The draft was reviewed and commented by a SEDS committee on May 31st. The draft was also presented and run by county staff in July of this year, and we're here this evening to present to you our draft for review and comment. I will be presenting to the city of San Juan Bautista tomorrow evening. Small font, a lot of people we solicited for input on the SEDS. One of the main reasons why we wanted to have rigorous stakeholder input is to make sure that we hear from all members of our community, from members of our community to be a part of implementing all of the strategies, and also to meet the new guidelines that were launched in March of 2016 by the Federal Office of Economic Development for rigorous stakeholder input from diverse constituencies. As City Manager Avera explained, why is a SEDS important to our community? According to the implementation plan of the 2035 general plan that I explained to you for the county shall prepare, adopt, and periodically update an economic development strategy which shall be used as an operational guide to implement the economic development goals and policies of the plan. The strategy also fulfills the Federal Economic Development Administration, or EDA, requirements for a SEDS to receive grant funding. Communities around us are receiving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in grant funding. We haven't been at the table to compete for those funds, and we're missing out. And that's one of the reasons why the EDC went to the county to get this started 2 years ago. The strategy identifies industry-specific goals and actions that build on the existing agricultural economy and industries, and clearly identifies how the county will help achieve these goals via staff support, incentives, and permit streamlining, either internally or externally. In recognition of this, the EDC of San Benito approached the county in 2015 to take on this task and receive 2 small funding allocations, $5,000 each, in the 15-16 and 16-17 budget cycles to complete the draft SEDS. The remainder of the work was funded by the EDC board members that were led by Granite Rock. So again, it helps implement the general plan. It combines a lot of the efforts that are being done in our community and puts it all under one strategy. The general plan economic development element, the LEAP and the LEO, the work of the Business Council, EDC, Chamber, Downtown Association, San Juan Committee, Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, and more. What's very important, it works to develop common economic development priorities for now and all in one place. And it makes us, the city, the county, and local agencies eligible again for EDA grants, and could be useful in obtaining other grants, including those from the USDA Rural Development. Very briefly, the economic development element of the county general plan includes several segments, including the development of a SEDS, identification of staff resources, a marketing program for attraction or bringing in more employers, an industrial and commercial sites database, which is already started on the city side by Mary. She carries that specifically for the airport region, which is very effective in our outreach to potential investors. A winery and hospitality combining district, a tourism promotion program, wayfinding and signage, as we brought up earlier, new and existing business support, which is most important to support and help our new and our existing businesses grow, and economic development and a revenue agreement, which will be help with moving forward to get your taxation and your tax sharing agreement completed with the county. Currently, there are portions of all of these aspects that are all active in various phases throughout the county, which is a good thing. There were 7 needs identified in the general plan and in this comprehensive economic development strategy. 6 of those included a need for improved cooperation for joint economic development, the creation of local jobs to reduce out-commuting and to fill our industrial parks, the need for a business attraction campaign, the need to strengthen our tourism promotion and add accountability and metrics, to retain existing businesses, and align our training with employment providers in cooperation with our Workforce Development Board, Gavilan College, the SBDC, and others. This strategy seeks to proactively address identified needs, create local jobs, stabilize and diversify our current local economies, which also helps us for resilience. It helps raise our income levels of our existing population, helps improve our quality of life, to reduce our outcommuting, and it also protects the environment. The EDA requires that a SEDS plan qualify for EDA assistance under its Public Works, Economic Adjustment, and most planning programs. The EDC took on this project so they can be positioned to work with our local jurisdictions, specifically the city of Hollister. I think we have the biggest opportunity to move forward quickly, and covers a 4-year period. And it does need to be updated annually. We have to provide reports to the EDA and our local jurisdictions. And a lot of those numbers are based on strict numbers of how many jobs have we retained and created in our community. As Councilmember Gilio referred, we need data and we need to rely on statistics. I want to point out some unique demographics within our community. As you know, the city of Hollister, as the county seat, holds the majority of residents within San Benito County, and San Juan Bautista holds approximately 4% of those. We have a very small per year population growth, but we are estimated to be at move from 57,000 to about 73,000 residents by the year 2030. About 52% of our residents are working age, and our poverty is lower. We have fewer college degree earners. Households are larger. Housing prices are lower, but are on track with the region. And as we well know, because of the influx of new home buyers from the Silicon Valley, San Benito County has seen a median household income raise from $65,000 to $71,000 during the period of 2006 to 2015. Median household income is anticipated to rise to $96,000 by 2020. The income effect of many residents working in the Silicon Valley can be seen in our SEDS program, but it compares income groups to California, San Benito County, and our region, including Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. San Benito compares favorably in 50,000 to 150,000 income groups, but has a lower percentage of residents below poverty level. It's important to note that our living wage in San Benito County is approximately $47,000. This is an issue because our housing prices are inflated by incomes of the Silicon Valley. But we have two economies. People that live and work here may not be able to afford to live here based on our median wage. It seems that this is a challenge that should be at least acknowledged, and we do in this document. Also, the Department of Finance releases income limits used for affordable housing and other assistance programs based on their data. Our median income is $81,000 for a family of 4, which makes us ineligible for a lot of federal and state programs, unfortunately. We have a community that's very much spread between a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots. Again, going to the jobs and commuting. According to the February 2015 Census Bureau American Survey, at least 11,500, or nearly 50% of our county's employed residents, commute to jobs outside of the county, including 7,500 traveling to Santa Clara County to higher-paying jobs in Silicon Valley, construction jobs, and many traveling to jobs in production agriculture in the Salinas Valley. Growth driven from the outside is a cause of congestion on Highway 25. 7,300 workers outbound in the morning and inbound in the evening, plus at least another 1,100 reverse commuting daily to Gilroy. And on Highway 156 to Salinas and Monterey, 2,900 out of 1,500 every morning. This is straining our infrastructure, including our groundwater quality, our roads. It leads to tax and services leakage, as we all well know, especially medical services, because they're seeking their appointments and using hospitals outside of our community. Our quality is worsened, and the health, safety, and quality of life of our commuters is at risk. Retail and commercial development has become skewed towards serving commuters rather than local businesses and residents. But it is good to hear from Brett that we do have an uptick in our local income tax. So our current employment is approximately 16,000, and we're looking to increase that by 25% by 2035. 11% is farm employment, which is high due to the state average. And our biggest clusters are agriculture, food processing, distributing chemicals and ag sales, and 48% or more of our workers are commuting. And our travel spending is unfortunately quite low because we don't have the capacity to take in more spending. We have one set of 5-year goals for 2017 to 2022. First is to act collaboratively between the 3 local jurisdictions and many economic development entities throughout the county, recognizing the important role of each of us in the thriving economy. 2, to invest in job creation, local business development and attraction, which could be a program led by the new staff of the EDC. They're looking to start in January of next year and supported by other members and service providers. 3, investing in talent development, retention, and education by expanding collaborative engagement and program alignment by business, the Workforce Development Board, and local schools, universities, and colleges. Gavilan College is really excited about getting involved in this community on a higher level, and they did provide a lot of input for the SEDS. The next, to improve the business climate and competitiveness to work on efficient and timely customer service, which is something I know that Brian and Bill are working on, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Investing in infrastructure, maintenance, and growth, as Councilmember Giglio referred to, really looking to how to bolster our transportation environment by becoming a self-help county is going to be very important. But that also includes transportation, broadband, a diverse array of housing opportunities with a lot more multifamily and those for our essential workers and our agriculture community, cold storage, energy, water conservation, and wastewater treatment. We need to have further support for entrepreneurial culture, including supporting innovation and targeted small business services. Ensuring community and safety and health, as the chief well knows, a high quality of life requires adequate health services, crime prevention, safe structures, and emergency preparedness. And last but not least, creating economic resiliency so we can plan for and create the capacity to recover from any kind of disasters and economic downturns. The 12-month action plan, we have number 1, expanding funding for economic development staff housed at the EDC and funded by a number of agencies. Options could include general fund support from the different jurisdictions, a lot of grant opportunities, and increased TOT tax. The next would be joint business retention, expansion, and attraction by targeting industry recruitment, active listening to the needs of existing businesses, improving broadband service, and studying the feasibility of a work share or telecommuting facility, which would be great to have in downtown Hollister. Collaboration, workforce, and data sharing, including best practices and filling information gaps useful to job creation and improved business climate. Teaming on improved permitting processes and infrastructure issues, like was referred to, having the county give us an accounting of their equipment so we can move forward collaboratively on road projects, including ensuring speedy approvals, good advanced processing and cost information for business, and possibly forming red teams to solve problems with applicants and with businesses that might consider leaving. The EDD actually receives information by anyone who be looking to lay off 5 or more employees, and they come in to try to keep them from laying off the employees, or if they do need to lay off or close, to provide them with retraining services, placement, et cetera. And finally, to partner to develop and implement a more robust tourism marketing and promotion plan, including the wine trail, considering a hospitality district, which is a self-funding mechanism to help pay for increased marketing and support services, and possibly increasing the TOT tax rate, a joint promotion with local attractions, and including metrics to evaluate the effectiveness. Some good projects for prosperity that was identified from our regional economic development agency representative from Seattle. She came here for a tour, and we spent about an hour and a half with staff last summer. One is the countywide economic development implementation plan. 2 might be a study to develop the the potential of the county's future commercial nodes at the interchanges of 101 and 129, 101 and 156, and 152 and 156, which also would probably include the realignment of 152 that we're talking about at VTA Mobility Partnership. That all plays into that as well. Water and sewer expansion engineering studies, maybe even a new well in the business park, industrial park expansions, funding to support agricultural and industrial areas, hotel feasibility study, including those in the winery hospitality corridor and at the commercial nodes. A small business incubator would be fantastic. I know that CSUMB would be really interested in partnering with us on that, and probably with Gavilan College as well. Again, reference to a remote workspace and telecommuting project, which we might be able to work with AMBAG and the Air Pollution Control District to partner on that, because all of these grants require some sort of a match. Strengthening partnerships between all of our jurisdictions for job and workforce development, and also doing a tourism, wine, eco, and agritourism impact study and development program. Almost done. Okay. Other SEDS chapters, this is a lot of the format is highly regulated by the EDA, what you have to include in it. A summary background and executive study, the total SWOT analysis, the strength, weaknesses, and opportunity and threats, and then a strategic direction and action and economic resilience plans with less emphasis on projects and more on systems and planning. As City Manager Ava referred to, what your last EDA big grant was for the Briggs building and the parking structure. The EDA is looking to move away from building buildings, but more building programs, building sustainability, and helping to grow wealth and local jurisdictions to help grow their general funds organically through job creation. There are additional information resources that have been placed on businessinsanbenito.com, including a lot of background information about the EDC, including a strategic plan they had done in 2011, et cetera, moving into this. And also I've provided links to free and low-cost business resources for our community. So the next steps for the SEDS include receiving your review and your comments. We'll also be going again to San Juan Bautista tomorrow. We're hoping to have review and adoption by the Board of Supervisors by winter 2017-2018. I'm including another robust discussion about economic development at their board retreat, which is on February 18th, 2018. The draft has already been presented to the EDA for review and comment. Their comments were if they were to receive it in this form, they would approve it. So hopefully we can get that to it as soon as possible so we can get the funds rolling in so we can get some work done here. We will be reviewing and updating the SEDS with the SEDS committee and our local jurisdictions annually. And we do have to present annual performance reports to the county, to the EDA, and to the local jurisdictions. And again, a lot of those are based on how many jobs have we created in this community and how have we risen the income. In closing, it's very important that we address our high commute volume. The county, the city, and local economic development partners must help promote new employment opportunities for residents within our city. The county and the cities can't control strong employment pull to the north, and it will only exacerbate citizen frustration if it enacts restrictions such as housing moratoriums and opposes highway expansions. It can only mitigate the problem by bringing new jobs into our county. The focus of our SEDS is to provide the guidance for future employment and industrial growth for the community and the cities within. These uses are vital to the economic health of our community, and we hope to continue to collaborate with you to create the opportunities and solutions to demonstrate that Hollister is open for business. So again, it's very important that we act collaboratively, that we be clear about who and what we are and leverage our strengths and opportunities, work together to get our community on board to understand what economic development is and how all of us play our roles, and understand how smart planning helped us keep the community that we fell in love with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Just one question. Christine, you asked us for review, provide you with input. How do you want that provided to you? I mean, you gave us the binder, we started going through it. How do you want us to present that review to you?
It would be fantastic if you have individual comments, if we can meet directly or exchange emails, or we can also meet with staff, et cetera, to do that. I'm looking for you to find out what's the best, most convenient way to do so. I think that a one-on-one meeting would be fantastic. And then we can share all of those comments with staff and maybe have a formal response.
Is your contact information in the binder?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
On the cover page. The contact I'm using for this project is Christina@businessinsanbenito.com. You're also welcome to give me a call, 831-524-0408.
Okay. Vice Mayor Clark.
Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much. I think as a community, we're lucky to have you being as plugged in and engaged as you are, and the dedication that you've shown over the last couple of years. I think when, at least from where I'm at, when you're involved with government, it seems like you don't notice that things take forever, but this was something that you've been working on for a long time and that I was kind of involved in on and off for several years now. So it's really neat to see it actually come together, and hopefully you'll get it approved by the supervisors here pretty quick. But in terms of just a couple comments, I think that the commercial nodes along the highways is just of absolute utmost importance in terms of creating revenue that the county and by extension the city is just not seeing at all right now. I think that the city, as we go through our general plan update, really should look at the Highway 156 and 4th Street interchange as an opportunity going forward. It's probably something that wouldn't happen for years, if not decades, but I think that we need to plan for it. I don't know, I've never been involved in that process, so would the county and the city work with Caltrans to kind of optimize those intersections? Because we're going to see some intersections being redone here shortly along 156, and if we get out ahead of it a little bit, and maybe we're too late in terms of planning, then access might actually be a lot easier than having somebody who wants to put in a commercial complex have to redo the entire intersection based off of their impacts.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a planner, but I fortunately do a lot of work with planners and staff members. I would think that it's never too early to start talking to them and start just soft sounding them about the ideas. We have the 156 improvements that should be started through San Juan Bautista in 2019. We've already seen the confusion and lack of communication between the two Caltrans districts. So I think having staff feel that out as early as possible before you have to have your general plan update and then circulate it to them for comment. It'd be good to not waste that time on that opportunity. You should also, within your scope of your general plan consultant, they should be also having discussions with the local agencies in regard to opportunities. It would be fantastic to have an economic development element added to your general plan.
Okay, wonderful. And then the other thing is just hoping to get an idea of how the remote workspace, I don't know what the other word was, but remote workspace, how that works in terms of getting a grant and then actually putting that into place.
Mm-hmm. What's happened in other jurisdictions, including that within the city of Gilroy, where CMAP has worked with a broadband provider as well as one that's in downtown Santa Cruz. A lot of it has been driven by the private sector that has received some grants from nonprofits, et cetera, to help get those started. Some of it is to lease space. The EDA likes to see some construction and ownership, but a lot of it is finding someone who could run that as a commercial a remote workspace provider where you rent time either by the hour or you have a desk space where you actually have a key code where you enter in, et cetera. It also provides, for those who are telecommuting for employers outside of the area, it provides accountability and a time card so employers actually know when they're checking in, they're getting work done, et cetera. There's also places that act as a remote workspace, telecommuting center, and a business incubator, because ideally an offset is you have people who are either running a small business from their master bedroom or a home office now that are running space or telecommuting. They meet each other they start some small businesses, and you're also able to utilize that same area to bring in the SBDC, bring in the chamber and other partners to do some small business education and training seminars.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Gillett.
I wanted to say thank you. That was a great presentation, and I appreciate the information. This may be a question for the city manager and for you both. Do you know how much we, the city and the county, spend on economic development now out of our general fund dollars?
The county spends $35,000.
5 times that. No. Well, if you count what we do to the chamber, to HDA, just those 2 organizations, HDA is, I think, about 65,000. Chamber was bumped up a little bit this year. It's close to, I think, 100. Those are just those 2. We don't provide any subsidy anymore to the EDC, but for several years, 25, 30 years, we supported the EDC to the tune of about $34,000-$35,000 a year. That's not currently happening. I think we did do some staff a while ago, but that's ceased. I think that's about it.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Gillio, just a little bit more information. The EDC hasn't approached the county for funding. I think part of it was they didn't have a position or a program to request funding for. I can't speak on behalf of the board. I'm not a staff member of theirs. But I do know their budget for the next year is about $50,000. It includes bringing on at least a part-time or a consulting person to start to implement the SEDS and begin working on grant proposals and start getting them to get their feet back under them, that they've lost their momentum since 2011.
I would love to see us as a city and as a county. We always say that we're open for business. It's easy to say it, but people look at your actions. And I think our actions need to support economic development in our area. And this is an easy way for us to do that. We can support this, the SEDS report. We can support the EDC. And I hope my fellow council members will join me in supporting that as well. I think it's hypercritical. We're talking about millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to expand roadways. And if we could spend a fraction of that and take some of that traffic off of those roadways and keep people home, giving them a higher quality of life, give them a living wage job so they can live and work in our area, I think it's going to benefit, multifold, not just traffic, not just people being happy. There's a lot of benefits to that. So I'd like to explore us contributing more and possibly doing something in-house as well. If we can't work with everybody on it, maybe we can do something in-house as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Lund.
Thank you, Christine. I enjoyed reading the report, the binder that you provided for us last meeting. And I can't help but think of Al Martinez, who actually ran EDC for so many years.
He's looking down on us right now.
I know. And his reports were excellent because as we did fund it, the city did fund the EDC at one time. Mm-hmm. I remember because I cut the checks for Al. And I remember reading his reports as a backup. And they were very interesting. And with Al, you saw him and you heard him all over this city. And when there was a crisis with companies leaving, Al was there. So I enjoyed reading your report and the statistics that you brought forward. So I'm hoping that you'll come back and that we can look at this even further to see what the city can possibly do. Because I know that we do help the chamber and HDA, but at one time, the 3 of them were on board with the city. So.
And I would have to say, Al Martinez was phenomenal by just meeting with business owners. He'd come sit down with them, have coffee. He was a lot different than Nancy Martin, and I think the best is having a combination of both and working as a team. I'm sorry, I got something in my eye here. Also being heartfelt
yes.
comments about Al.
Yes, he was. Well, thank you for the report.
It's a team approach, absolutely. Thank you.
I want to make a quick comment, Christina. I was on the Planning Commission when we did the last general plan and now involved with the new general plan. So I've been around here about 20 years doing this stuff, and I have never seen a report like this. I've never seen this much effort put into just rekindling the EDC. I mean, it's a great report, and I want to thank you for doing that. It's really, it's very comprehensive. It's very easily to follow, and it's very easy to pay attention to. Pick out the areas you're really interested in and pick those up. So I thank you for the report.
Thank you, Council Member. I also would like to give credit as a subcontractor on this project. I was the chief author and the project manager. I brought in Wes Irvin he's a consultant for the California Office of Local Economic Development. He's also a former economic development director for Yolo County. They're also a regional county near a very urban base with an airport, et cetera, and they had a lot of commonalities, and he was able to bring a lot of excellent input to the project.
Very well done report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the update.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any speaker cards on this item?
Marty Richmond.
Did you really have to ask?
Always.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'd like to first preface my remarks by saying they are mine alone. I'm not a member of the EDC, and even though I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce, they don't represent the Chamber of Commerce. I'm not on their board or anything. So this is mine. It's a good report. Someone put a lot of work into it. I read it all carefully. 50 pages. I don't agree with all of it. I think some of the analysis was a little weak. That's my personal opinion. But overall, well, I sent my critiques to Christina in writing, so she know what I'm talking about. But I want to talk about some things. One is a 9-year hiatus is like a 20-year time off when you consider how long it takes to get these programs restoked up back to the same thing. I would not say anything about the San Benito Board of Supervisors to you that I would not say to their face. So I will tell you what I said to their face the other day, which is they have no interest in this at all whatsoever. The whole county has dedicated $35,000 to their effort, I'll use that word, effort, for economic development. That comes out to about 40 cents a person. San Luis Obispo County has dedicated $2.38 a person for their entire county. If we had $2.38 a person, our county would have dedicated $150,000 or more toward this. They have no interest in this. I don't know why. There's something going on that I can't explain. I have my suspicions, and they involve the fact that they prefer not to have an economic development because they don't want any competition for their cheap agricultural labor. That's one reason. The second reason is they're just too short-sighted. And like I said, in case you think I'm torpedoing them out of the public's eye, I wouldn't say anything to you that I haven't said to them in public at the podium. So there's something going on, because rather than saying, okay, we don't agree with the whole report, but here's 1 or 2 items out of 50 pages that we can move ahead with, they said, we have to study it. We have to get more staff to support it. We have to do anything. So obviously they have no interest. So I'll give you my view. If we're going to be beggars, we should be good ones. And that means we should qualify ourselves for these grants, because that's the only way we're going to move ahead. And which means they've got to get off their behind and certify this report. What excuse they could possibly use to say we're not going to certify it? It's going to take another 4 months. So if 9 years equals 20 years, like I say, 4 months equals a year. So we'll be another year behind by the time they get around 4 months to deciding to say, okay, yeah, we think we ought to do some economic development. And then maybe we'll be another 2 years behind when they say, okay, we think we ought to put some money behind it. So they don't want the revenue for reasons I don't understand. Perhaps it is because they're an empty shell and 50% of their revenue income comes from public welfare, and that's all they're really interested in, is taking money from the state and the federal government so they can pass it on to people who can't find a job. Now, there is something in this report I hope you noticed, and it is important. San Bernardino County, by definition of the statistics already qualifies as a bedroom community. Well qualified. And Hollister essentially is right on the edge of being a bedroom community based on how many people live here and work here. If you took out the public employees at Hollister, you would definitely be a bedroom community, because we happen to have the hospital and we happen to have the big school districts here. So you took the public employees out of here, essentially we're getting almost nothing from business. I am not talking about sales taxes. I'm talking about economic oomph, the kind of money that real businesses put in. Because for all the good employment that comes with public employment, you don't get the oomph because they're not in the profit-making business, okay? So you got to decide, if we're going to move forward, then we've got to support these things, and we've got to put some money behind them, and we've got to make the investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment. And I would like to be alive during the period when this comes to fruition, and my doctor tells me I'm not going to live forever. So I would hope that you would move on and push the county and say, look, guys, we don't care if you put another dime in, just sign the certification, get the hell out of the way, rather than stall us for another 5 years while this people who need a job in this county go begging. That's ridiculous. That's the way I see it. I believe it'll be a tough one, and one of our major weaknesses, as I leave, I'll cover it, is the fact that we don't have any post-secondary education. And Gavilan had an opportunity to invest $25 million here and decided not to do it. They chased it over at Morgan Hill. So don't count on them for anything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Bill, you know what I was just, as some of the comments and some of the information, I think what we're going to have to understand too, or try to get an update on, is with the cannabis industry coming in, a lot of properties have been optioned. I'm curious on what's still available out there, so we have an idea of
what lots are available, or
what can be brought in, because in the reality of it all is, if there are options or purchases taking place now, I'm hearing a lot of the not a lot of available land that has been optioned, and I'm curious if that's reality or not.
Well, I know two pretty prominent landowners out towards the airport, and I don't think that he has any real options on a lot of his properties. He's still focusing one of them is still focusing a lot of his efforts on some high-tech companies. Oracle's one, Google's another, to continue to do the expansion down here. I think there's people that view differently what's on one side of San Felipe versus what's on the west side of San Felipe. So, but I can try to do my best to find out what's actually going on.
One of the major conversations, I think we can bring it up here too, and we've been talking about the mobility partnership, is the future route of 25, 156, and 152 joining together, swinging to the south along the 156 corridor now at San Felipe. We have to have a conversation about that as a council, as a city. If we're looking to move that route southernly, more southern, that could be a very important industrial commercial center area, and would be very viewed very positively from some of these companies we're looking to bring down. So that's a conversation we need to have, because that would mean the flow of traffic would actually use San Felipe to the north to get to the highway, and that would open up a very big area and would be, I think, a very good commercial opportunity for this city and this county. So we need to be start having this conversation. That's the route we're going to want to take.
Yeah, and I would have two comments. I know it's getting late. Has all the council members, have you seen the maps of the various alternatives for those roads? Okay, so one thing I will do is I will try to get everybody a map of the sort of what Mayor Velasquez is talking about, and some of the routes and where they may end up being, and the sort of the costs associated with those. And then just so this council is aware, when we do have conversations, our planning staff and myself with the property owners and we'll just say north of the airport on San Felipe and the intersection at 156. There's a lot of talk about campuses, cannabis-type campuses. The one thing that I've made very clear to them is I don't believe that this council is interested in having campuses go all the way to the road. We were mentioning the general plan process. If we go out to that distance and in our planning documents, we absolutely want some highway commercial as a part of those properties and not necessarily just zone it completely industrial. So I'm already putting it in their head already that it's okay, but we need to have sizable parcels up there or sizable amounts of land available for that highway commercial if it ever comes to fruition. So
well, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because the mobility partnership members are looking to us as giving them direction on, is that what we really want? Because in the past, it's exactly the opposite. And a lot of them they're not sure if we're looking towards this new route now, or are we going to go back to the old way of pushing them out of our community? So I think if we can get a consensus and a conversation about this, we can draft a letter and send it to the members. That'd be very helpful to make this finally happen.
Well, it's funny that you say this because 20 years ago we talked about the 3-in-1, right? And we're almost right back to where we were.
That's exactly right. And this is, again, it's been a conversation, and to pull that committee together has been a lot of work, but they're working with us as partners now. They want to make sure we do have commercial activity here. Okay. So they're willing to work with us, but I think it'd be helpful if we could draft that letter, if we can get a consensus and go from there.
Okay.
All right?
You got it.
I would like to bring up a point, and this is not putting anybody down, but when that committee meets, that deal, we have to make sure we have somebody there. They met last week and they had no quorum. So I think if and I understand your situation, if you can't be there, we need to have somebody there at the table.
And we're going to look at how we do the alternates on that committee. It's a newer committee, and we'll work that out.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, can I make one question to the city manager? Might be out of order here or out of section. We talked about at the last meeting writing a letter to Caltrans, and this was requested through member Ana Caballero about the pushing up the 156
Start
construction
date?
to 2018.
Yeah, did I sign that one today?
Great.
Oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe it was another one from I can't remember.
If we work on that, I'm gonna bring it up at COG on Thursday as well to see if we can do that as well. And then I've also asked the county, and I'll get back on them again to see if we can get that as well, so we can all three have one together. Thank you.
Okay. HIJK, there's no business.
Move for adjournment.
There's been a request to adjourn in the memory of Peggy Corrales, and also to the victims of the fire in the Sonoma area, Napa Valley. Okay, is there a motion?
Yes.
And a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for staying out with us here tonight.
Considering they've been sitting there till 10:30.